Welcome to the Home Builder Digital Marketing Podcast. Over 90% of today's home buyers start their buyer journey online. Here we talk with not only industry experts, but also your fellow home builder marketers to learn how you can succeed in our incredibly competitive digital world. And now, here are your hosts, Greg Bray and Kevin Weitzel.
Hi everybody, this is Greg Bray with Blue Tangerine. Recently at the 2025 Home Builder Digital Marketing Summit, I had the opportunity to sit down for a conversation with Elicia Azali, the Chief Marketing Officer at Beazer Homes. We enjoyed this conversation so much, we wanted to share it with you. We hope you enjoy this special episode.
I am so excited to have Elicia here, and when we invited her, she was like, you know what, I'd rather just talk than present. And so I said, great idea, I will help her talk. Yes. We're so excited to have her with us. Elicia, thank you so much for spending time.
My pleasure, happy to be here.
So you're relatively new to the home building industry.
I am.
What got you interested in being in home building instead of some of those other areas?
First of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I am relatively a newcomer, so I enjoy creating connection in these type of spaces. So happy to be here and hope to connect with some of you after the chat this morning. Honestly, home building wasn't on my radar. I started to think about the importance and the legacy that people create in their lives in this industry and in this category. Then I started learning more and I started talking with people who have been in the industry for a long time. And I heard things like brand doesn't matter. And I said, well, that's weird. Because when I think of the word brand, I think of the perception that people have about you or your product and how that's brought to life at every interaction and every connection of that experience or journey. This feels like a category where brand should matter the most. It's literally the most expensive purchase that people make in their entire lives. And so then I got even more curious and started checking out websites and things like that. And I mean this in the spirit of love and respect. We've taken this heart-filled industry and we've taken it to square feet and bedrooms. And I said, wow, I think this is ripe for sort of disruption and emotion and to bring heart really into the work and into the industry. And so I'm here for a good challenge. It energizes me. And so it was this tension between someone telling me that there's no role for a brand, but then me saying, oh gosh, but brand is probably the most important here because it's literally one of the most important purchases a customer will make in their entire lives.
Okay, so you're trying very hard not to offend people by telling them their brand stinks.
No, I didn't say that at all. Quite the opposite. I think the role of brand and how that shapes the work that everyone in this room does, it doesn't matter what role you're in. Brand is not, in my opinion, owned by marketing. It's something that everyone contributes to. My goal is for you to leave and sort of see yourself as a steward of your brand, whatever business or product you're selling, and to take that back and sort of energize your teams around the importance of being consistent and clear around who you serve, what you stand for, no matter what role you're in.
So you come to Beazer and you see this opportunity for disruption for a brand. How do you kind of navigate that? Hey, you know, we could do this different, we could do this better without offending the people who have come before and trying to move that forward with unity and buy-in and all of that. How do you approach a project like that?
So for those who don't know, Beazer is headquartered here in Atlanta. It's a national, publicly traded home builder, about 5,000 closings a year, primarily in the Southeast and some on the West. Things that make Beazer different are commitment to energy efficiency. We're the #1 most energy efficient home builder. And we also really lean into providing customers choice. So we don't have a mortgage lender in-house. We actually have lenders compete on behalf of customers. We give customers the opportunity to help choose their floor plan free of cost. And so I share all that to say, Beazer was a company or is a company with a soul and a personality and a point of difference. And those are really good ingredients for elevating a brand, because if you're trying to build a brand and there's really nothing there to storytell around, it's a little more challenging, but that's not the case with Beazer, both from the product and also just the people. That is, to me, really at the heart and the essence of why this role in particular was interesting to me.
So where do you even begin then with, I want to make this better? I mean, obviously what you're describing is not just, let's change the logo. Some people think branding is a logo and a color palette. You're talking about something a lot more in depth. So how do you know where to start?
So think about building or elevating a brand kind of like your favorite story or your favorite movie, your favorite book. You have to have a clear understanding of who your characters are, right? You want to have a connection with characters. That's kind of job number one of brand building, kind of like storytelling. The best stories connect you with customers, connect you with characters. You have to know something about the person in the story or the person in front of you, right? And so the first stop for us was really getting clear on who we serve. And I use the word serve very intentionally because I believe in customer-centric growth. Job number one is to get very clear on who your customer is. And so we took a step back, and it was a pretty rigorous, both analytical and qualitative sort of endeavor to ask questions like, who are we winning with today? In our land pipeline, like, do those people show up where we've purchased land? You know, you kind of have to match the exercise with the industry. What are they interested in? What makes them excited? How do we sort of take what we are doing and make sure that there was a fit there? And so again, both analytically, but we also just went out in the community and we talked to people. We got to know them. I'll share a little video that summarizes, you know, how we think about who our customers at Beazer are. It's really short, but hopefully it gets you a sense of, you know, you've got to understand what their needs are so that you can follow up in the story with, you know, who we are and the storytelling and the arc of the story.
With Beazer, we get to choose a kitchen layout that fits our life.
Our energy-efficient Beazer home keeps the air cleaner and helps us save along the way.
Quieter spaces allow us to truly unwind. Learn more at Beazer.com.
So a few subtle things there. You can start to get a sense for what the needs are and also tie to how we're different at Beazer. Quieter spaces. One of the big opportunities for Beazer was we're a very rational and logical kind of organization. Who works with a team that's kind of all head, you know, needs to dial up the heart? You have to raise your hand. But I would say at Beazer, we were really concentrated on what sat behind the walls from a construction standpoint, a lot of science. And sometimes even when our customers would come into our doors, we would get really into, you know, the construction, the building science, and those things are important. Zero Energy Ready, Energy Star. We were kind of just throwing our accolades out. You know, kind of in this journey with understanding who our customers were, we realized we needed to kind of balance out how we positioned ourselves from a brand perspective to be, you know, creating that emotional connection that, again, when you go back to storytelling, that's what makes stories great, is when you know who those characters are, but then you're at the heartstrings. You know that what you're telling them is going to move them in a way. And to be sure, it's not brand for brand's sake. We're trying to sell homes. But the way we're doing it is, again, through connection, through understanding customers. And so you can see that our big opportunity was balancing out that head and the heart.
So you're telling a story. You've got marketing that tells that story. Then the customer shows up. How do you keep the story going through the whole journey as opposed to just being the initial touch point?
This is, again, kind of my mantra. One of my mantras in the organization is everyone owns the brand. Marketing might lead this work, but this is the company's work. Not when the going gets tough at the end when I'm trying to get to execution, all the way from the beginning. The work that we did to define our customers, the work that we did to define, you know, how we do our storytelling was always multifunctionally led. There were salespeople in the room. There were product folks in the room. There's finance in the room. There's area presidents in the room from day one. So that when it got down to the moment where we're thinking about, okay, how do we bring this to life? I already have people raising their hands like, okay, well, I think we need to change our elevations a bit based on this customer that we want to win with. Or I've got folks that are, okay, well, I wonder if in my market, if I'm really buying land in the area that makes sense for the customer. And so, you know, bringing them along from day one helps them see and sort of answer those questions. How are we truly moving this brand in unison together? So it feels less about kind of a marketing, you know, tactical plan and truly a brand strategy.
Does the sales training get involved then too? Because salespeople want to do their thing. There's no salespeople here, right? Okay.
I love the salespeople because to me, they are the manifestation of our brand. Those interactions that our customers have with them, you can't get closer to the brand than that interaction. And so the training and that customer experience required to make sure we're using the right language, making sure we're thinking about how do we measure that interaction from the language we were using in emails from our online sales counselors. All of that is what comprises the brand, and all of it has to be in service of that North Star. So certainly a lot of sales training, again, just driving that consistency through the entire experience.
So when is the right time in that story to switch from the emotional to the square footage and the energy efficiency behind the walls and all of those more feature-oriented messages?
You know, it's kind of like a conversation that you'd have with anyone. First, you have to disarm them a bit, right? You need to get to know them. If you walk in the door and the first thing you say is, okay, what are you looking for? You already know what kind of transactional conversation that's going to be. Just like if someone walks up to you, everybody's had this happen, they're at a bar and someone says, what do you do for a living? You're kind of like, my name's Elicia. And you want to kind of create a connection. So I would say job number one is to ask the 5 whys, like really get to know the person, and then have that differentiator really be a bit of a bridge. If it's energy efficiency, people don't necessarily ask for that out the gate, but maybe you find out that they have a dog or they have allergies or something, and kind of that discovery, well, wow, this ventilation system that we put into every home that we build, we know has cleaner, healthier air. A lot easier conversation to have around cleaner, healthier air than the technical aspects of a full home air ventilation system and how air exchanges. You know, people are like, okay, I got it. What's in it for me is sort of that mantra that we help with our teams. Ask that question. Customers want to know what's in it for them. You know, help speak on their terms, but it requires you to know who they are so that you can pay off what we do differently in words that mean something to them.
The old saying is all real estate is local.
Yeah.
You guys cover a lot of different geographies, areas, different focuses on these audiences based on the type of product and things that are there. You've got a lot going on. Some of our builders here are big. Some of them are like, I can't even imagine 5,000 homes a year. How do you keep the consistency between the balance of what they need to do locally because, hey, we need more traffic in this one community next week or else, and this larger, everybody needs to be moving in the same direction, marching to the same beat? Where's that balance lie?
So we've got 16 divisions across the country. There are marketing teams that live with each of those divisions. And I very intentionally call the marketing teams in those divisions the local CMO because they know their customer best, they know that market best, and they need the gravitas in those rooms to be seen as the expert in their customer, in their market, et cetera. In fact, where is Alejandra? She is the local CMO for the Atlanta division. I'm so happy she's here. And so there is this balance and this collaboration that's required to say, okay, here's who Beazer stands for, but I'm new, but I'm not naive to think that I know the Atlanta market better than Alejandra and her operations team. And so I would say it's very much a partnership to say, hey, these are some of the non-negotiables. Here's how we want to interact very principally with customers. Here's how we want our brand to show up. It's not easy because we get some wild promotional material, as you can imagine, that I'm like, well, I don't know why you chose that color because that's interesting. Or I've been known to say no sign spinners. You wouldn't see them at Chick-fil-A because even in that industry of fast food, Chick-fil-A knows kind of who they are and what they stand for. So even in fast food, where that kind of has a perception of being a low value, the brand means something. I give those teams permission to know how to serve their market best, but there are some moments where you do need to color within the lines, if you will.
I'm envisioning the meeting where Elicia goes, that's interesting.
Tell me more about that. Yeah.
Help me understand where this came from.
Yeah, we do a little bit of that.
Well, now you've put this out there, you've got these teams running. How do you measure success? What's working, what's not? Where do we pivot? Because you know you have to pivot along the way. It's never all right at the beginning.
Absolutely. I mean, it's never all right. That would be too easy. One thing I've learned is I'm going to say leads first because I know the industry and I know the room. But it's not just leads. We like to talk about the quality of the lead. We like to think about and kind of work backwards. Who is that person? How can we better understand them? Not that we wouldn't be happy. We will serve any customer that walks in our doors of course. But the more we know about who is interested in our brand, the more we can strengthen how we talk to them and the messages that we create and the new products that we bring to market. Social engagement, it's a bit of a qualitative metric, but you can learn a lot from just what do people want to share. You think about kind of from that storytelling perspective, the best stories are the ones you want to share with someone else. And so again, just another way to think about, is your message resonating? Word of mouth means a great deal to us in this industry. Who are people telling? Social engagement, brand awareness, leads, but it's also working backward. Who are those people that are driving those social engagements? Who are the leads? How do we bring more of them, and which ones are staying with us? Which ones are sharing in our customer experience survey, which is super valuable to us? To your question earlier around that experience, we've added new questions to make sure that emotional benefit is coming through even in our customer experience survey. Sure, did someone tell you about our product? Was everything on time? All of those very kind of clinical things. Did you feel cared for? That's the kind of question that we're asking in our customer experience survey. Because if we did all the, kind of expected things, that's great. But if we want to be a brand that stands for care, we should be asking along that journey, did you feel cared for? Did you feel like, someone took the time to get to know you? And so that's how we're extending all the way from the top of leads, certainly, but through that customer experience, making sure that consistency and brand is resonating across.
That's a powerful question, because you could do all the things they're supposed to do, and there's still an expectation disconnect, and they don't feel cared for because they came in wanting something different. So you can probably learn a lot from that. And then, of course, why not is the next follow-up question. Has there been a time where you went, oh my goodness, we need to add step 10A because we are missing something?
Of course. I think the most important part is the fact that this is ongoing work. And so you add these questions to the survey, you get the results, but you don't sit on them. You make sure they get back to the teams. You sort of study them. And again, kind of in this idea of knowing who your customers are, this is them going out of their way, spending extra time to give you feedback. I just really think that's the richest way for us to continue to really drive growth, is to better understand what their needs are. Yeah, there have been some programs that maybe people just didn't understand. Mortgage Choice is a really powerful tool of ours because, again, it's when lenders kind of compete to help you save. But just telling that story, because it is pretty different from other builders, we're looking at the survey to say, how do we get even more crisp with what that benefit is, but also bring it up higher into our storytelling because it is so powerful and well received. But we weren't mentioning it until much later in the process. And so that's kind of one of those insights that, we uncovered, and we said, we can elevate this in our storytelling.
You mentioned the idea of the customer sharing as an indication of how the storytelling is working. So often with social media, we're all about, did I get enough likes or whatever, and comments as a way to just did my post work. I feel like you're taking this to a different level of how we use social media to measure success that I think is a little different from what I hear. Do you think that's revolutionary or different, or is that everybody does it that way?
Social is search. If you're not thinking about social media, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok as a search engine, you kind of have to make that mental shift. There are more, Gen Zs that use TikTok as their search engine than any other. That's their number one search engine. For millennials, YouTube is number two. So it's one thing to think about social as the way to kind of just do brand storytelling and you're putting posts, but truly you need to be present in those channels to be searchable, to be found. Creating content that is specific for those outlets is really, really top of mind for us.
All right, so let's just throw digital in here. What's your general top digital tactic, and what do you think everybody's wasting their time on that they shouldn't be spending money?
I'm not dodging the question, but I really don't believe there's one tactic. It's really around how the pieces and parts of your storytelling come together. The thread there is you have to kind of weave people through that journey. And so paid search certainly is important, but once they get to your website, if that doesn't pay off the promise that you made in your search tagline, then kind of doesn't matter. If you don't have video content that represents your brand in a way that is compelling and interesting, then great, you had search, you had the website, but the content didn't pay it off. So I really believe in the consistency of the ecosystem. The way AI search results are headed is super important, that you can't just kind of rely on one tactic to get the job done. All of the content has to be credible, all of it has to be consistent, because that is going to fuel a more powerful response in that AI-generated outcome.
So it's about the whole environment. And if I'm understanding correctly, it's not about a tactic, it's about a strategy and about connecting it all together.
A story,
And
that's
I think
right.
you said telling a story, right?
That's it.
Has anybody heard the word storytelling more than
Yeah,
once this
yeah.
morning? Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. How do you decide if one of these is broken in the middle of all this chain? If it's one piece of it that is out of alignment versus the rest?
We look at the performance sort of at the portfolio level. We truly manage our digital marketing like a portfolio. We look at the investment, we look at performance, and what we see on one side from a results standpoint doesn't necessarily need to be identical, but the sum of all of the parts need to kind of achieve our higher goal, whether that be leads, appointments, et cetera. So again, kind of a mindset shift of not just looking at, performance in a silo, but really managing it like a portfolio and making sure that the sum of all the parts is in service of both nationally and that hyper-local part of your business. It's a dynamic sort of way to lead. It's not a set it and forget it sort of mentality. I think, years ago, you could just buy your media and, make some posts and put some signs up and keep it moving. It's much more dynamic in real time, much more analytical. Marketers often get, well, you guys have the fun job, and I do think our job is fun, but we are very much in the numbers, and there's a lot of rigor that goes into measuring performance and optimizing in real time.
So we have a few builders here who would dream about the kind of budgets that Beazer might have available in their marketing. What would you say to the small builders that are trying to still get that message out, but don't have the same, team size and resources available?
I would say do the easy things right every single time. If you know who you are and who your customers are, and you can start to tell that story around what makes you different, what makes you tick, and very consistently thread that story, even if it's just search on a website and social media, just make sure that you are very compelling and very consistent doing the little things right. Again, working with your online sales teams, making sure that the language that they're using, yes, AI, but not copy-paste. Don't put the little flower emoji every single time before your email. These are the conversations. And so if your brand stands for being hyper-personalized and warm and caring, and yet every email response is a copy-paste, that's inconsistent. So I would say be focused, do the things that matter the most very consistently.
All right. So for those who are working for one of those, how do I say this? Good old boy builders that don't believe in marketing, how do we get them on board with this storytelling and the fact that I can't necessarily see a sales lead today from these activities, but yet we know in our hearts that this is where it's at, this is what works?
I'll tell you, my initial response was, we'll turn it off, the marketing, and see what happens, but I'm better today. I would say embrace the power of and, because it's not brand again for brand's sake, it's brand to help make connection with customers that drive sales. My first goal is to help our businesses grow, and the metric for that are leads and appointments. That's job number one, that's why we're here. This is my belief on how to get it done the best, the most effectively, over time. Sustainable growth is what we're talking about here, which is brand storytelling. It's not an or discussion around, am I building brand or driving leads? Like, no, those things go together. Continue to create that lead pipeline alongside doing the work that we've been talking about this morning.
All right, you ready for the hard ones?
Yeah.
Can we open it up for the audience?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. Who wants to ask Elicia a question? Raise your hand. We'll get a mic. Come over. It's your chance. We got a few minutes so we can have some questions.
Hi, Elicia. I'm Juliana. I'm from Orlando. I wanted to hear more as the sales team is the most important ambassadors of your brand. How do you engage the external brokers in your brand?
Thank you for the question. Welcome to Atlanta. So I would say job number one still is getting clear on who we are, and then finding partners that have that shared sort of value and interest. Not every broker or realtor is going to be interested in selling and representing who Beazer is. Again, I mentioned before, we pride ourselves in having quality construction, energy efficiency, giving customers choice. You have to be interested in providing that. If that's a transactional experience or product or purchase, that's kind of not going to fit for us. It's sort of the same process, but maybe from the other angle, is finding partners with shared values. And the word partner is important. You have to be sort of like-minded. And if that turn is super important to you and that's your business, that's probably not going to work for us because that's just not aligned with what we stand for. And so I would say getting very clear, even in that setting with that values alignment is really important.
I agree with you 100%. Thank you very much.
All right, raise your hands. Got one over here.
I'm Tiffany Biggins. I'm here in Atlanta. I don't know how long you've been with Beazer Homes, and you speak on this brand awareness. To me, it means personality, telling a story. How did you go about helping your builder understand that that was a very important tool in helping them move forward in it? And how were you received at first?
So it's this interesting tension because our CEO knew this was something, he felt compelled that the through line of what we were doing is very important. And that's great because there's certainly momentum, but there's still 1,000+ people that you have to convince and bring along this journey. Bringing people along so you aren't surprising them at the end with some big moment or a change to a sales process or new ways to measure, that consistency and, okay, here's where we're going, and every step of the way they're in the room. So here we are, I've been there 16 months. Everybody knows where we've been because they've been alongside of it. It's sort of changing the mindset that this is not about marketing, it's actually not about sales, it's about the company, and it's about taking the investments that we've made in our product for years and elevating that story consistently. That feels like something that everybody can see themselves in versus if I started with, let's just do a new campaign, let's switch the logo, let's take some new photography. It would have felt like, yeah, we've done that before. But this was really marrying up the investment in what we do differently. If we say we're different, we should talk to our customers differently. We should have a message that's different. Our construction managers, they should have the vernacular and the language too, because they're interacting with customers. It's really drawing that consistency and bringing the organization along for the journey.
All right, another question?
Hi, Elicia. I'm Silka with New Home Source. I know you mentioned the local CMOs. When decisions that are made or initiatives that are made at the corporate level, how do you get buy-in at the division level from your local CMOs?
Nice to meet you. I think my team's been working closely with you guys for years, so thanks for that. I grew up at Procter & Gamble, which is a pretty rigorous organization, and so I have a firm belief in planning. And so part of what each of the regional teams do is create a plan, both numeric and from just a sort of a message or activity level, that they get alignment with their operations team annually, but also they're reviewing it real time with their teams. So there is full transparency in the outcomes that we're accountable to, but also how we plan on doing that. So if there's a grand opening, like let's get in front of that. Now to be sure, this industry changes, things happen. It's a plan just to build confidence in that in the local operations that we've got this, but it's also demonstrating that nimbleness to adjust. But really it's rigor in planning the work, working the plan, and just being clear on what each of those teams across the country are accountable, but also giving them a tool to talk to their division president and their operations leader to say, hey, here's what I'm on the hook for. It just kind of changes the conversation when you're being proactive and being in front of it. When they're talking about, hey, here's our lead goal, and here are the 3 main sources that, and just boosting their confidence, and again, letting their teams know that we've got it.
Thank you.
We had another question over here.
Yes, hi, my name is Andrew with Reliant Homes, and I wanted to ask you a question about a scenario that we're seeing. Our team, it's not a big marketing team, we're not a huge builder, but we do good work, and we're noticing a gap between our ads are performing well, we're seeing a lot of traffic from social media, but once we get that traffic to the website, we're seeing a breakdown where it's not converting into appointments. Conceptually understanding what you're saying about storytelling and visualizing our website in my head, I can see opportunities for where we need to focus on more of an emotional appeal. But outside of just testimonials and maybe some customer stories, what would you suggest? Like, what are some tangible things that I could implement today to change that?
First, it's super nice to meet you, and I love that you said you're small but mighty. I love the credit there. I would encourage that you kind of take one step deeper into the leads. We have the same dynamic. Not every lead is created equally. And so you have to, again, think about it from a customer's perspective. I have lead sources that they are looking to buy within the next 1 month, and I have some that are shopping and it's a 6 month. And how I interact with both of those potential customers, it's got to be different because they're literally in different mindsets. The connection to storytelling is, first I have to get to know where they are, right? The lead source, the customer, the potential customer. And then based on that information, we have to behave and interact differently. If you are coming from Facebook and you're just shopping or dreaming, the content that I want to get in front of you, whether that be an email or a video, probably should be more in the dreaming mindset because you're not there yet. If you can understand that I'm within a month, I might talk more about my mortgage choice program that's more specific around the rates that we offer. Maybe we'll tell customer testimonials because they're closer to making that purchase. And so I think it still kind of comes back to understanding where people are in that journey and then aligning that message and that story kind of based on where they are, because that dynamic you're explaining, it very much exists. Think about your own behavior, you know. I'll kind of peruse around. That doesn't mean I'm disinterested though. And so we had to do a little bit of mindset shifts. Just because they didn't immediately convert over the weekend doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad lead. They're a different lead. They require a different sort of interaction.
Okay, so what I'm understanding is like from understanding who the lead is and where they are, we should change how we're tailoring the lead nurturing strategies to better fit what they would be more receptive to based on their mentality.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. Nice to meet you as well.
You bet.
All right, well, thank you everybody for those questions. Elicia, I want to give you just one last opportunity to share some last words of advice or thoughts as you've listened to these questions and some of the things people are struggling with and interested in.
Sure. First, thank you. 2 things. Be courageous. What we're talking about is probably a new mindset shift for your teams, and stay curious. I'm certain that the team this week, you're going to learn things about digital marketing that you did not know before. This part of the business is changing so fast. Understanding and staying curious around what's next and how all of these pieces and parts fit together to better do that storytelling we've been talking about. That is like your role in the organization. So there's this balance of being courageous, because some of the ideas you're going to bring to the table, they'll likely be new. They've never been tried before. It is really your obligation as sort of the voice of the customer to bring those things that haven't been heard or talked about before. And that kind of takes a little bit of courage sometimes.
Elicia, thank you so much for being with us. Everybody, big thank you to Elicia.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about how Blue Tangerine and Outhouse can help you generate more qualified home buyer leads, visit bluetangerine.com and outhouse.net. If you've enjoyed our show today, please tell a friend, leave us a review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to join us again on the Home Builder Digital Marketing Podcast.